All right, everyone, it appears that the D-list comedian Kathy Griffin is feeling neglected of late. It's rather obvious that the attention star's celebrity-wannabe is desperately trying to remind the world of her existence with her latest, cringeworthy stunt at blaming President Trump for the coronavirus outbreak. We're going to take a look at Griffin's latest stunt, how it's actually embarrassingly backfiring, and why it shows the precise reason why Trump's approval numbers are surging to heights unimaginable. You absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here. Wonderful to be with you. As always, a super happy quarantined Thursday to each and every one of you. I certainly hope you're all doing well and are safe and at home. Before we dive in here, let me ask you a question. Why do you invest in the stock market? Is it mainly for financial reasons? What if you had a different perspective, maybe one that included making a positive impact on America? Well, our sponsor, American Values Investments, they specialize in helping patriotic Americans invest in companies that best reflect timeless American values. Values like integrity, caring, and courage. Even during economic downturns, which may include a decline in their stock price, these companies, with the help of their shareholders, are still finding a way of making a positive impact on our country. There's risk in the stock market, of course, and this ad does not constitute an endorsement. But if you want to learn more about how your investments can help America, then check them out at AmericanValues.com or simply click on the link below and tell them Dr. Steve sent you. You'll be absolutely glad that you did. All right, everyone. So if you haven't heard, Kathy Griffin is back in the news. Now, if you haven't heard that, that's because Kathy Griffin is a D-list comedian who hasn't uttered anything even remotely funny in the last several years. She's perhaps most infamously remembered for that ridiculous stunt she pulled a couple of years back, where she was featured in a brief video and a photo shoot of herself holding up in ISIS-like fashion a bloody mock-up of President Trump's severed head. Do you remember that? Right? The photo shoot, which she originally described as a kind of an artsy-fartsy statement, whatever that means, it received immediate denunciation, even from fellow liberals, however reluctantly. And most faulted Griffin even back then for being a little more than just a D-list comedian who was just looking for attention, trying to remind everyone that she existed. Well, she certainly got that, but perhaps not quite the attention she was looking for. She lost her gig with CNN, where she had been doing their annual New Year's Eve program with Anderson Cooper that nobody watches. She saw her gigs at casinos dry up, as well as a Squatty Potty commercial endorsement, which is probably the only endorsement appropriate for her. So what was left of any semblance of a comedy career ended up taking a nasty nosedive after that silly ISIS-inspired stunt. But she's back, or at least she's attempting to be back. She's now self-reportedly in the hospital suffering from severe symptoms that they think might be coronavirus related. And while I certainly wish her only the best in terms of recovery, I couldn't help but notice how desperate she appears to be in exploiting her sickness as just another occasion for left-wing Trump bashing. Now, Trump tweeted out that the United States has done far more testing than any other nation by far. In fact, over an 8-day span, the United States now does more testing than what South Korea, which was very successful, does over an 8-week span. So great job, everyone. You know, an attaboy kind of tweet. But Griffin decided that she would want to pee over all that tweet with one of her own. And here's what it reads. He's lying. I was sent to the COVID-19 isolation ward room in a major hospital ER from a separate urgent care facility after showing unbearably painful symptoms. The hospital couldn't test me for coronavirus because of the CDC, that's Mike Pence's task force, because of their restrictions. Now, again, I get it. If you're in pain, you don't think that critically. I get it. But what precisely did she contradict about President Trump's tweet? Is Kathy Griffin, is she personally familiar with South Korea's model? Because that's what President Trump's tweet was all about. That the United States has done far more testing than any other nation by far. So where in her response did she demonstrate that Trump was lying about that comparison to other nations, particularly South Korea? You may be familiar with the Johns Hopkins study that just came out. It was a study by the Nuclear Threat Initiative and the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. And it concluded that the United States was indeed ranked the best prepared country in the world to handle a massive pandemic outbreak. President Trump is simply echoing that assessment. Does Kathy Griffin know something that the researchers at Johns Hopkins don't? Now, again, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm sure she's in a lot of pain. And again, I wish her a full recovery. But I think this is a major reason why we're seeing President Trump's approval ratings surge during this pandemic. You have to understand, this is a nightmare scenario for leftist liberals, not the pandemic. No, that's precisely what ultra-leftists like Bill Maher were hoping for. Remember when he publicly wished for a recession because it would be the only way to defeat Trump in November. Well, liberals are getting what they wanted. No, the nightmare here is that Trump's approval ratings aren't imploding like they were hoping they would. They're actually ascending. They're going up. We did a video just the other day on that. You can click on the link there. Let's see, over here, I think, and check it out. I'll link it down below for you as well. Trump's approval ratings in terms of how he's handling the pandemic have now surpassed an astonishing 60% mark. That's stunning. Remember, leftist liberals are doing everything they can to try to pin this pandemic on Trump, even calling him a racist in the process for referring to the virus as the Chinese virus, which, of course, the mainstream Marxist media was doing up until just a few weeks ago when liberals suddenly decided such a term was racist. Andrea Mitchell of MSNBC has come out horrified that Trump's approval ratings are going up so fast she can't believe it. NPR's decided to stop airing the daily press briefings because Trump's approval keeps going up. What we have to understand here is that this calculus is rather simple. President Trump is leading while liberal leftists are whining. Trump is leading, liberals are whining. Now, you're in the midst of a crisis. You find someone who's leading us in a clear and thought-through way out of the crisis with some of the best and most competent people around him. And then you have a bunch of people who are panicked and hysterical and who lash out at this leader and his highly competent team every chance they get. And their solution to the crisis is what? Get rid of the leader. That's their only solution. Get rid of him. Orange man bad. Now, if those are your two choices, who are you going to follow? Who are you going to stand alongside of in the midst of a crisis? This is what the Trump derangement syndrome has wrought among leftist liberals. They simply don't seem to get the fact that a total and complete and uncompromising hatred of all things Donald Trump amounts to absolutely nothing in the midst of a pandemic crisis like the one we're currently experiencing. So ironically, when D-list entertainers like Kathy Griffin start tweeting out this vitriol and hate-spewed nonsense, what are they actually doing? They're only helping Trump and hurting themselves. That's the bizarre self-destructive nature of Trump derangement syndrome. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't help but think of that when I looked at Kathy Griffin's selfies, those pictures of her, of herself in her hospital bed in a quarantine unit, because I mean, it's such a perfect picture of the end result of Trump derangement syndrome. TDS ultimately sickens the person suffering from it, not Trump. Trump's approval ratings go up. And those who suffer from TDS begin to physically and emotionally implode. There's an old saying rooted in the Christian tradition of the forgiveness of one's enemies. Forgiveness is for the forgiver. Forgiveness is for the forgiver. When we're bitter and we hold grudges and we hate, ironically, that condition doesn't negatively affect the person we're bitter towards. What? It erodes us. It erodes the one with the ill feelings, with the hatred and the bitterness. I can think of nothing that proves that saying more than Trump derangement syndrome and the self-destructive tendencies of those inflicted with it. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my video on Nancy Pelosi caving on the stimulus bill, all the while more and more Democrats are leaving the party. I think it's going to make your day, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.